Look at that. I have a note on my notes. Welcome. How are you doing today? A month or so ago, I made a video about true crime coverage and discussion that bothers me. I find it a nuisance. And you know, as I've been following the progressions in a couple other cases, I've also been reading this book. My best friend Sarz sent me this book. It is called The Profiler. It is by Pat Brown. She is a YouTuber, and she's a professional criminal profiler. She also worked as a sign language interpreter in hospitals. Sarz also sent me this very cool bookmark. Thank you, Sarz. So I had fun making my video about true crime stuff that irks my nerves, and I made a little list of a few more things because I thought it would be fun to make a part 2. I had fun last time. Maybe we can have fun again. Okay, the first thing I have on my list is listing relatives. You know exactly what I mean. In like missing and murdered cases, they will say, this was someone's sister, father, mother, daughter, brother, high school sweetheart's future wife. Like, they just start listing people because humans are related to each other. We all mean something to somebody. And they'll say things like, as a father, this really hit home for me. And I don't get it when people say things like that, because it's like you shouldn't have to be able to like directly relate to a situation in order to like understand and feel like compassion and sympathy and some form of empathy for what has happened. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean. And if you're a type of person who has to only be able to directly relate to something to realize that it's awful, I think you have a disorder. And I don't know, you might want to look into treatment options. Another thing in the discussion of missing and murdered cases is that they always use the cliches. She really lit up a room. She just loved life. I hope if something ever happens to me, they say I really stunk up a room. And loved life? As opposed to what? That's another thing, loved life. A lot of people, families of victims who have committed suicide or have just like had a very unfortunate accident, these people would rather believe that like they lost their loved one due to like some crazy serial killer who's on the loose, because they cannot fathom for one moment that maybe their loved one wasn't doing as well as they had hoped that they were doing. And maybe they did choose to like take the exit. Or, you know, it must be hard for some people to believe, but like some people get drunk and do really weird shit. And like something bad happens. And for some reason, families just refuse to believe that. They would rather believe that it was some horrific, violent killing rather than just suicide or an accident. I don't understand that. It's not more comforting for me to think that someone died that way. I would rather just feel very sad knowing that, like, the real way, because it's still really fucking sad. In my last video about true crime, I mentioned brutal murder. Every fucking murder is brutal. All of them. It's always a brutal murder. And now I'm not asking for anybody to call it a casual murder. I just would like for them to maybe Google some synonyms. And I said that I would like for them to Google some synonyms. So I have done that here for us today. Gruesome, horrific, ferocious, vicious, ruthless. There are many more, but that's a short list you can pick from. Have fun. Okay, so when there's a really sensational murder or missing persons case, there's a lot of money to be made in covering those stories. And you will see this in certain television and YouTube channels who will milk and milk and milk and milk for views when they have nothing to provide. Not a single thing. They don't have anything to add. And I feel the worst offender that I have found is NewsNation on YouTube. I'm not sure if they're actually on a television network as well, but they're not like a YouTuber. They are a company that owns and runs and operates this account on youtube.com. And they just love to fill airtime, don't they? I saw this clip, and if I can find it, I will, but by now it's probably been buried in 134 other YouTube videos with the exact same fucking title and subject. But they were talking about the Idaho murders, and if you're unfamiliar because you are not an obsessive little weirdo like me, 4 University of Idaho students were asleep in bed in their home, and some motherfucker ran up in that house and stabbed 4 of them to death. And it's been over a month, and we don't know anything. But in the case coverage that NewsNation has done, they've had these ridiculous guests come on the show to just speculate. And filling airtime, I swear to God. At one point, they had, I don't know who this woman was that they brought on the show, and they were saying, well, what kind of person would this killer be? She tells them, well, you know, it's very interesting because he did go inside of the home and into the bedrooms, and there was a staircase. And it is clear to me that this killer has experience being inside homes before. Not the home where the murders occurred. No. Her profile of this guy is that he's familiar with a floor plan or two. He's been in a home once or twice in his life. Girl, come on. They also had a guest come on the show, NewsNation, who, what a dork. This guy, he's also a YouTuber. He, on Thanksgiving, decided to drive from where he lives in another state over to Idaho to, like, vlog the crime scene from the street and act like he was getting some sort of scoop. He gave us nothing, but he made a big deal about how he stood at the edge of the crime scene tape, which was the entire property, the perimeters roped off, and he saw like a disposable glove, and he, oh my God, he thinks it means something. So he went over and alerted the law enforcement patrol officer that was just camped out, keeping an eye on the crime scene. And he's like, you need to call in your evidence people, and they need to come down here and bag and tag this. I have found a clue here. And he made such a big deal about having found this fucking glove, which, oh my God, it probably just blew out of the fucking trash. And they kept talking about it on the show, like, this glove was right outside the front door. It was on the fucking property line, dude. What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
And they even acknowledged, the host of the show on NewsNation, Ashley Banfield, she acknowledged, like, don't you think that you coming on TV and publicly broadcasting that you found this glove that you think may have been connected to the killer could weaken the state's case against the perpetrator when they do catch him and provide fodder for his criminal defense attorney? And he was like, oh yeah, absolutely. So they're sitting there on TV acknowledging that, like, don't you think we could be damaging the case? Yes, I do. Stupid. Another channel that I have come across and then kind of like immediately unsubscribed from is a channel called Unsolved No More. It is run by a guy whose name is Ken Maines. A lot of people like him, and I don't. I'm not coming for him. I'm just going to say why I don't appreciate what he does. Personally, I'm not saying he's exposed, unsubscribe. No, it's just you and me. We're having a discussion. I'm telling you my opinion about some dude on the internet. It's not that deep. I'm the type of person who hates when people tell you the type of person they are. And Ken Maines is the type of person who loves to tell you the type of person he is. He'll talk about his fashion and music taste, and he like, oh God, let me find it so I can read it. He put up a community tab post. Okay, I found the post. Now, let me preface this by saying Ken Maines is a retired detective, and he likes to act like he's a cool guy, man. He likes 4/4 time in classic rock, man. He's got tattoos. He's like one of us. But he's incredibly biased towards law enforcement, and I don't have an issue with law enforcement. I have an issue with refusing to be critical at all of law enforcement. I think that's a little... He's biased. He used to work in law enforcement, and he likes to talk like he's a very old, wise man, and he's a retired detective. Guy's in his, like, mid-40s. And so he speaks with this authority, but the way... I'm just going to read this so you can see the way he talks about himself. Just turned down an interview on Fox News American Reports. Again, never heard of it because I don't watch the news. Yeah, I guess I'm that guy. The rebel. The outlaw. The one sick of society and its morals. The one who doesn't bow down when told. Yeah, that's me. Why would I agree to their live interview when they will only give you 5 minutes to speak on the topic, and it has to meet their narrative or they may cut you off? It takes more than 5 minutes to explain anything correctly and with conviction in this world. Didn't we just go through this on NewsNation? Oh yeah, NewsNation had him as a featured guest, and they let him speak for like 30 seconds before they just cut his mic and like went to a different segment. And he was butthurt. He made a whole video about how they disrespected him, as any good person does. I have learned from that mistake. They act like they're going to do me a favor by having me on. I mean, they are. They're getting your name out there. How many subscribers did you get from that? I've had my 15 minutes already. I won't be a media whore because I don't need it. I'll leave that for the others out there that need that ego stroked. I'm content with my unsolved no more platform. I have my loyal followers who come to me for truth and true crime. I won't abandon them. They are the best, and if you want to know about these Idaho college murders, come to my channel and learn. But I digress. Maine's out. So just the way he operates kind of rubs me the wrong way, and especially like, okay, I don't really understand like what he was doing with his channel before, but he made a recent announcement saying, I guess I'm going full on into true crime, because I guess before he had this niche of I'm a retired cold case detective, and I'll talk about that. I don't think he's actually solved any cold cases. He was just a cold case detective. But now he's pivoted and he's trying to say, okay, well, yes, like I don't watch the news, but I guess I'm going to have to start following the news so I can start covering like current criminal cases. Good for you, dude. Have fun. You'll get a lot of viewers. But the thing is, he puts like the names of like these cases, like the Idaho murders is one that he does a lot in the title of his video. But the content of the video is him sitting on camera reading through the comments of his previous videos and arguing with his audience. Dude, you're doing yourself a massive disservice when you start arguing with your audience. Don't do it, dude. Don't do that. Don't do that. Let them come in there. Let them say whatever the fuck they want. You don't have to read it. You don't have to look at it. You don't have to acknowledge it. But the moment you start spending just about every video reviewing comments and arguing with those people, first of all, you're making bad content. It's not fun to watch. And two, I mean, I guess you're a rebel, but like, you look like a prick. And, oh boy. I woke up yesterday to find a blessing. Our girl Pat Brown is calling out Ken Mains. Pat Brown does not appreciate that Ken Mains has been having this recurring guest on his channel. The guy's a murderer, and he's a death row inmate. That is why Pat is calling him out. But I found something very interesting in Pat's comment section regarding Ken Mains. This woman commented on Pat's video, I personally am a mark of Ken Mains' grifting. He upped YouTube membership on his channel from his initial $5 tier to top tier $35 a month, promising to profile a case we each suggested. And he knew I desperately wanted help with a cold case of a little girl in my home state. He also promised to answer any questions, which technically he did, I suppose, by consistently answering, I don't know, instead of looking into it and answering thoughtfully. I stayed 3 months at the top tier, and all he did was review TV shows. I canceled my subscription and reported him to YouTube. I also purchased his Unsolved No More book, which I later requested a refund from Google. That was unsuccessful. To my knowledge, he has never solved one murder. He wrote an entire book titled Unsolved No More, in which he detailed 0 solved murders. I appreciate your candor, Pat. So do I. And how you look out for innocent people. I'm okay with you deleting my comment if necessary. I just feel better voicing what happened for the first time. Girl, she gave that man a lot of money. And I know a lot of people like him. I think he's got a shitty attitude. I don't like how he likes to tell us all about the type of person that he is. Because when it comes to things like that, that is a massive red flag for me. Show. Don't tell. Show me what kind of person you are. Don't tell me. And Ken Mains has both shown and told. And I don't particularly like that guy. because of what I have seen and heard of and from him, and now about him. I also noticed when I was thinking about it earlier today, getting ready to make this video, Ken Mains, I assume, since I'm a retired, cool, badass guy, I'm a rebel, he doesn't wear a wedding band. And I thought maybe there's something there where he's like trying to reel in the women, you know? Because he just doesn't seem very confident and secure in himself if he has to keep telling us how cool he is. Because I feel like if he was just in a relationship, if he had like a husband or a wife, he would just be like normal instead of trying to keep telling us about himself. You know? Let's go on, shall we? I have notes. Look at that. I have a note on my notes. Now, I've watched quite a few, admittedly, videos covering the Idaho murders. There are a lot of people who are willing to like tear apart and ruin the lives of all of these people they think could have killed the victims. And a lot of them are like young people, like college-age kids, and they are just ready to tear those motherfuckers down. They are doxing people. It's bad. And so I saw this one guy leave some long comment about how he thought it was this one kid because this kid went to Africa for Christmas winter break when, like, he should have, I guess, had the foresight of knowing he needed to stay in the States, because what this person described was that this person called this the worst murder of the decade. And I replied to him saying, really? Worst murder of the decade? And he replied to me and said, this is why you don't have any friends. And I said, because I disagree with your classification of this crime, that means I don't have friends? I have many friends. A lot of them live far away or have children or both, and like that interferes with us getting to see each other in real life a lot. But that doesn't mean they don't exist. And also, sir, you have completely failed to make a single point for your side of this argument. You just went ad hom out of the gate, my dude. And so I let him know, you know, hey, I will check with my friends, because I'm pretty sure I can guarantee you they agree with me, and this should not be titled the worst murder of the decade. That's just inappropriate. Oh boy, he came back at me, going on about how, my friends living far away and having children is the most ridiculous lie about why I don't get to spend time with them. And that I'm a Debbie Downer of the internet. And I waited a few days, but I finally replied to him today, and I said, listen, are you unfamiliar with all of the other mass murders that happen in this country? It's pretty common. It is inappropriate and disrespectful to all of the other victims to rank any of these tragedies higher than another. That doesn't really matter now, does it? You can't, like, these people who only, like, make ridiculous, like, what is it? Hyperbolic statements, and then when you question it, they just ad hom attack you. They look dumb. So with the Idaho murders, one of the victims' families has been very outspoken. They are, understandably upset, and I cannot fathom, like, the profound loss that they are suffering right now and not having answers, and law enforcement not really wanting to tell them anything. I completely understand where they're coming from, but I also understand that they probably do get paid for some of those interviews, and nobody ever likes to talk about that. So we won't talk about it. But this one family has been on just every news channel. They've been on camera as often as they can, giving interviews and talking about what they know. And this one family said that, and I don't know that they've seen the autopsies for all of the victims, but they've seen their daughters, and they have given the impression that their child's injuries were somehow worse than the other injuries of the people who were also stabbed to death. And they say that this one victim, their daughter, had defensive wounds. And people have heard that, and they have twisted it to mean she fought like hell. She fought for her life. They act like she was somehow a hero. And that's something I have an issue with. I don't think it's fair that when someone is murdered, if they tried in any way to not die, people put this, like, hero status on them and project this, like, they want the victim to also somehow be like the hero at the same time. And that's like a lot of pressure to put on someone who got murdered, man. You're still trying to force them to be an overachiever? They got stabbed to death in their own fucking bed. But I went into a comment section where people were talking about how this one girl fought for her life, and I had to explain to them that defensive wounds doesn't mean she got stabbed while she was asleep, woke up after having been stabbed, sprung out of bed throwing punches and doing karate kicks. That's not what defensive wounds means. It just means that she was awakened to the sensation of having been stabbed and reflexively like put her arms up in a protective like position. And so when I explained that, someone replied to me just saying, "You're evil." And this woman who replied to me, her display name had just had like a first name, Samantha, with the little 2 pink hearts next to it. So when I saw the notification of her reply, in my head I read, "You're evil." I don't have patience for these people at this point. True crime casuals are the worst. If you think people who follow true crime are a bunch of weirdos and freaks, that is fine, but at least we educate ourselves and have some idea of what things mean. But when like a missing persons or murder case like grips the nation and captivates public attention, all these people who never, they may have a couple episodes of 48 Hours under their belt, but that's it. And they gallivant around, acting a fool. And if they really knew what they were talking about, they wouldn't have to ad hom attack everybody who says, "Well, actually, would you like to see a statistic? Would you like to read a definition? Oh, no? Okay, I'm evil and I have no friends." Sounds good to me, man. Which is, again, why I really enjoy Pat Brown. It's because she's realistic, she's well educated, she doesn't do this nonsense, she doesn't float with these lofty ideas. There are some YouTubers who will have questions from viewers in their chat who will say the most ridiculous things, like, "Do you think it possibly could have been demonic possession?" Because some YouTubers will go, "Oh, maybe, who knows?" Not my girl Pat Brown. She will say, "No, that's ridiculous." She doesn't entertain silliness. And I know that I'm a very silly goose, but when you're talking about really, really horrific things like this, of this nature, these violent crimes, and tragic loss of life, some of the people in these comment sections couldn't solve a game of Clue, or even a game of Clueless. One last thing I will say that bothered me about NewsNation and other people milking the Idaho murders for airtime is that I heard someone say that the profile of the Idaho murders killer is someone who was young enough to have been in that neighborhood. I didn't know there were age requirements for neighborhoods, did you? I don't know, man, that one was silly to me. But that's about all I have to complain about today. What are your thoughts? Am I evil? Do I have friends who do see any of these things happening in the world, on television, online, and think, huh? Tell me about it. I want to thank you for listening. I feel like forgiveness is very important, so I want you to forgive yourself for the time that you have wasted watching this video. And have a good day.